let you run with it, Ryan.
Well, thank you very much, Janelle. I appreciate it. And thank you to you four for joining us today. I'm very excited to have this conversation, as each of you are very good friends of mine and people that I've looked up to in one capacity or another. And today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce each of you to save the embarrassment of introducing yourselves. I'm the only one that has to introduce myself, unfortunately, but I'll keep it brief. I'm Ryan Kahn, for any of you that do not know me out there, and I own Shelton Associates CPA and CS Business Consulting, and some other supporting businesses along with that. And I prize myself in leadership and helping people grow and be better. I have a background in law enforcement. I spent 12 years at my local city of Paducah Police Department, where I got to do pretty much everything under the sun in law enforcement, including some of the highlights was not only being on the SWAT team, but being the SWAT team leader, undercover drug and vice unit commander, a sergeant over patrol, and a leader, instructor, and trainer in over 17 different law enforcement disciplines. So I've made mentorship and growth kind of a priority of mine. More importantly, I'm a deacon at my church, and I help with a lot of ministries there, and I really get involved with the youth, and I really enjoy helping young adults and youth grow and try to reach their maximum potential in both, physical, spiritual, emotional, and financial means. So that's a quick background on me. Dustin Campbell, who just happens to be next in line on my camera roll, he is the preacher at the Broadway Church of Christ in Paducah, Kentucky. It's one of the larger churches here. He has an immense influence in the community. He does all kinds of little YouTubes and blog postings. He also has a business background. He's gone from business leadership in his past to ministry leadership, and he really stretches his reach as far as he can to do the same thing, help people become their better version of themselves in his focus of becoming Christ-like people. Next in the lineup here is Lara Cooper of Accountability Services, and she's out of Seattle, Washington. She is a recent good friend of mine over the last couple of years, and she is impressive to me because she is one heck of an entrepreneur. She has acquired a couple of accounting firms, and she grows those and expands those and develops people. And she also helps transform the unfortunately broken accounting industry. And she is having her influence in that industry, and she is growing and continuing to make waves and make changes, all for the positive and all for the good. And we've collaborated on several things, and we are just two like-minded people. Kevin Neal, he is got a little bit of a dynamic background. He is a friend of mine from law enforcement, but prior and during law enforcement, he was in the Marine Corps, and he was a gunnery sergeant over the sniper platoon. So he created Marine snipers. Did 3 tours, I believe, overseas, and then also finished out as a sergeant at the Paducah Police Department. So he went from service in the military to service in law enforcement and ultimately to public service, where he became a county commissioner of his county right next door to us, and did an outstanding job doing what is right inside of difficult situations and just leading by example. And so I admire him a lot, and we've had some of the most in-depth conversations in my life with that man sitting right there. So just wanted to give you guys a 30-60-second bio or so we could at least get a little familiar with everybody. So thank you again and welcome. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up with that first question for all of you, and probably Dustin, I'll have you jump on it first, and then Lara and Kevin. But it's going to be the title topic is, in your respective fields, each of you, what do you believe is the single most pressing challenge that leaders are facing today, and why are they facing that challenge? Dustin, what are you seeing?
It's interesting, coming from a ministry perspective where people are my business. It's interesting coming from a background in worldly leadership, owning or co-owning and operating a business, and then now moving into the ministry. There are things that I could probably get away with as a leader in the world, and when you are put into a ministry scenario, some of those things are a little more difficult. But if I were had to narrow it down, and I made a list of challenges, and every leader knows that there are challenges in plenty, but probably one of the challenges that I think I have seen, especially in the ministry field, and really probably it's the same with people, is when you come in as a new leader that follows a leader that had been there for a long time. When that happens, it seems like every leader has different personalities. Every leader has different ways to influence people. I think one of the best definitions for me for leadership is influencing people for the right thing. And when you come in after somebody, whether that's in a corporation, I know personally when I was in the business world, my dad owned the business before I kind of stepped into the role. So that created a whole different family dynamic on top of coming in. And I am alike my dad, but not the same. And I have different ideas and different visions. Um, in leadership, in my work as a minister, when you come in and follow a leader who's been there for 30 plus years, it creates difficulties and challenges um, to move forward and to embrace, or have the people who are following you to embrace a new type of leadership, and a leader with different priorities, different styles, different personalities, and even in my case, a different level of enthusiasm. So that's probably one that I think speaks out to me, that I constantly go to, that I think can be applicable to just about any form of leadership.
I love it. Thank you very much. Lara, what are you seeing in the accounting world, professional services world?
Unmute myself. You'd think I would know by now. I think the challenge that Dustin mentioned really transcends any industry, which is just there's different leadership styles, different levels of enthusiasm, potentially even different goals out of whoever or whatever you're trying to lead. And so I think a big challenge in that, really two challenges in our industry stem from that. One is trying to still provide some stability to your clients, your coworkers, your team throughout a changing environment, and not only in a different leadership style, but also the accounting industry has changed more so in the last handful of years than in the decades prior. You know, clients used to be very used to transactional relationships, or they could ask the world of you and you had the time and the bandwidth and the resources to give it. And now we're at this phase in the industry where we're really running into bandwidth challenges. Hundreds of thousands of people have left the industry, but we still want to serve our clients properly. And so we're having to reset expectations and teach clients our standards and how we work. And that retrains not only our clients, but our processes and the team members that follow them. So it's a big challenge, is just providing stability and clarity throughout an environment that's changing so often that it's difficult to have clarity and stability.
Yeah, outstanding. And I feel your pain.
Yeah.
So very good. So Kevin, tell me about, from your perspective, and you've got 3 prongs to choose from. So I'm curious to hear what you see as that biggest challenge. And you're on mute, sir.
Okay. With my background with military and law enforcement and then public service, you know, the military and law enforcement has a lot of similarities as regards to readiness and preparedness. You know, as a police officer, you go through the academy, they teach you the legal, they teach you the whole aspect of being a police officer. But it's not until you get to your agency that you have to learn this whole new system as far as how we do it here under their policies, and rightfully so. The Marine Corps has its same structure. But as you navigate your career, and especially when you become a leader, because now you are in a responsible position to make sure that your unit or your team or your individual self, you're ready and you're prepared. Because we all know in law enforcement and the military, it's 99% boredom, and that 1%, everything is, you know, being applied. And that 1%, and I'm using 1% as an example, but that is where that is so catastrophic. It can be very catastrophic, and it can be very successful. History has proven that. And that, to me, as a leader, making sure that you're prepared. And I'll give an example. In the sniping community, the school that you actually go to, the sniper school, they have their prerequisites. They have their training manuals. They're going to do it their way because it's worked. And it's the basic fundamental skills. But then when you come back to your unit, you got future leaders that you're looking at. You got these young Marines. You now bring back the latest technology. You bring back the latest experience, knowledge of the subject matter, and you are responsible for educating those individuals to be the future leaders within that skill set or that profession. On top of everything else as a leader that you have to do. So for me, it's one of the most challenging things to do is to make sure that your people are prepared for the small things and the big things. You got multiple personalities, as you know, in the law enforcement. You got a lot of folks that see things different, view things different, handle things different. But at the end of the day, preparing them with the knowledge, the skills, and giving them the tools to be successful, that the customer, which in this case will be the citizen, and their rights, aren't violated, that they have a good experience. And then the individual officer has a good experience. It is such a complex relationship, but you can do it. There's tools there to do it. Leaders do have the ability to do it. Many do it every day. And so for me, that is the biggest challenge because there are failures in those areas. Complacency is one that comes to my mind. Complacency in both military and law enforcement, quite frankly, can be deadly for the individual and others. So managing that from a leadership perspective, I know in roll call, the first of the year, the officer down memorial page, I don't know if you remember this, I would frequently pull that up and I would show officers in roll call. I'd take a few minutes and show them, hey guys, here's what's killing us as a profession. We all think of the bad guy with a gun or a knife, which those things do. But the number one thing that was killing us is a heart attack. It's our health. And that's something that we tend to forget about as leaders. We focus on the law, we focus on the policies and how we handle people out in the community with their constitutional rights and things. But the one thing we forget sometimes is our health. And the heart attack is what was the number one thing that killed us. So for me, it's being prepared, being ready for when you have to go all in. And it can be that small scale call all the way up to that bad call that we really don't want to go to.
Excellent. I love it. And you did a great job kind of leading into the next question. I'm going to put a little pause on that one because we wanted you to give an example of how you just gave a perfect example with the officer down list or the memorial page. And I remember reading those with you and going through them and being a little surprised. Like you said, we all thought of the bad guy hiding around the corner with a gun. And certainly that happens, but it happens this much compared to the other. So I'm going to answer a little more generically since I share an industry largely with Lara and a historical industry with you. One of the things that I've also discovered about leaders, and this is largely what inspired me to kind of make some changes and be a little more vocal, is that leaders face the challenge if they have no resource to go to. They've never been trained and taught how to lead. In the accounting world, you go get an accounting degree and then you attach yourself to a CPA for 2 years and look how to do it. And in the ministry profession, you go get a ministry degree and you usually get some type of internship and you put yourself as a junior associate minister of some type, and then you become the preacher of your own church. In government, you can at least get all of the bylaws and the ordinances and everything has passed down to you. You can read the Kentucky Revised Statutes. You can go to an academy. But if you sit here and you're an entrepreneur or you're just a highly skilled employee that gets promoted to manager and supervisor, there's no tool set that's been provided for people. So one of the things that I think leaders are really challenged to find this day is a way to be taught and trained as a leader. One of the things that was super influential to me was the Academy of Police Supervision, that 3-week-long course, right? And if you paid attention and you applied what they were learning in there, my goodness, that right there by itself would transform leaders exponentially. And, why can't there be a way and a place for people to find out how to develop themselves and there be tools in their tool set? So I think leaders are facing a lack of experience, a lack of mentorship, and a lack of training in most fields. Kevin, I want you to expand on a little bit for me, and I'm asking you for a specific bridge here. So something that you picked up in the military that was a leadership tool, tactic, methodology, and how you applied that to your life as a sergeant supervisor in the police department. How did you bridge a leadership experience specifically for military law enforcement?
Yeah, coming from military law enforcement, one of the things that was a smooth transition as far as leadership is concerned is giving your people the tools to be successful. But you have to understand what tools they need to be successful. You get a lot of information from individual officers. Hey, I need this, or I can use that. But really having that background as, okay, this piece of equipment sounds good, but is it really effective? It may be, it may not be, but having that opportunity to maybe get your hands on it, go out to the range as a firearms instructor. Great point is that shotgun style 223 for the long distance engagement. That the city was not, and the police department leadership was not wanting to jump into that AR, but my experience, a pistol and an AR, I'm going to lose that fight hands down. So that transition with the shotgun style, because we're trained on the shotgun, and it's a 223 caliber, which is a caliber that can reach out. It all sounded good. It was a good initiative, but it was not the right piece of equipment. Officers would get assigned this weapon, they'd put it in their trunk of the car, and that's where it stayed. That's not a good piece of gear. So we continued to push that up the chain as leaders to say, look, we need the AR because when we have an active shooter in a workplace or in a school, typically it's going to be a long rifle and there's going to be a standoff distance advantage. So having that the experience to understand that the tools give your people, if I want to hold you the tools to be successful to achieve beyond that standard, and that can work in any workplace. Accounting, I don't know what those tools would be. I would assume a calculator. You don't want to use an abacus, I would think. Government, when I was in government as an elected official, I also saw, give the employees the right tools to be successful when they go out and do their job. You get better performance, you get better response from your employees. And in law enforcement, it can save an officer or a citizen's life. So to me, it's giving your employees the tools that they need to be successful with the tasks that they're asked.
I love it. That's excellent. Yeah, that goes along with that servant leadership of if you're trying to be a servant leader, you're going to provide to them the things they need to be successful. Lara, let me jump over to you real quick. You mentioned just a little bit providing some stability amidst an environment of change. So accounting, as you've already admitted, and I definitely can attest to, it's a rapidly transforming profession as it exists right now today, right? So you, I know, are implementing change within your teams, okay? So that specific, recognizing how the industry is transforming, knowing that you have a team and a firm that needs to have change implemented, how are you overcoming those leadership challenges?
Good question. For one, we have a really amazing team that is comfortable with change, or at least not resistant to it. And I always say, I don't like making change just for the sake of change. That's not the purpose here. Much like what Kevin said with the tools that we're using, you could have a perfectly good tool, but if it's not used, it's not worth anything. So we need to make sure that what we're doing is effective. So whether it's change or the way that we train on the change, it has to be effective, and everyone has different learning styles. But some things that we've done to help that is, even for example, with how the industry is changing from transactional to advisory relationships, we created a learning plan for our staff to go through the specific deliverables that we would provide a client and videos of sample presentations and delivery of it. And then our accounting manager has weekly meetings with her team, and they really go into detail into those materials of how would you explain this to a client, or what would be the trigger to bring up this advisory conversation or opportunity to a client, and really getting the critical thinking going on those topics. And my failure a year ago was saying, here's the materials, learn how to present it. And after the learning plan came out, it became so much more just interactive. There's a lot more enthusiasm within the team of, oh, this client needs this, or I wish we had this before when they went through this. And so a lot of it was just not holding the cards close to the chest and really getting everyone's input on learning styles. And my goal is to have the smartest people around me. Everyone else should be better than me at something. And so if we get everyone's top skills together, it's obviously much more successful than me trying to produce something alone.
I love it. So you gave a remarkably loaded response to the question that which is beautiful. So what I want to do is I want to emphasize a couple of things that you said, just so it really resonates with everybody that's watching. Okay, so you said implementing these processes, right? There's got to be a process to implementing processes, right? You can't just, all great plans fail when it comes to implementation. You can literally have the best plan in the world and fail at implementation. Gathering those tools. You said we create a learning plan for our staff. And so for me, that is wonderful, because we do the same thing. We call it, I just nicknamed it the fly on the wall method. And it's a process of making one person a fly on the wall. At the end of the process, the other person, the trainer, is the fly on the wall, watching them do the work. And so that path dispels fear. It dispels the anxiety and the nervousness. When we were imparting the advisory model to our staff members, they were so nervous because they didn't know how to do it. So we implemented a plan. We're going to cover this topic this week and this topic next week. And by the time we do this all, we're going to have this progression, this implementation we can learn. So I want to highlight that that's what you're doing. And that's how you're getting that change and that transformation into your people. And you're doing it with consistency. You're having those weekly manager meetings, right? And you're getting input from your staff and buy-in from your staff on what that vision is and how we're all going to get to that vision together. So that is a very loaded, wonderful response. And that was better than I was hoping for. That's why you were invited here. So good stuff. So Dustin, I'm going to jump over to you, and we're going to go into the world of spirituality, man. Like, nothing diverse, nothing, that can ever sometimes be polarizing with people, right? Religion and spiritual talk, right? That's never polarizing or difficult. So you have literally one of the hot topics that you're not supposed to talk about at dinner, right? And so in this world of polarizing topics, you help to lead a congregation of all these people of different beliefs and different backgrounds coming together under one roof, trying to pursue truth. I want to know specifically with you, what are your tricks, tips, methods to leading that diverse group of people that think and come from different areas and walks of life?
I love people. And I think that what really motivated me to lead, to become a minister, I will tell you, starting off, none of this is original to me. I fell in love with Maxwell's book, 360-Degree Leader, because so much in my position, I'm literally leading from the middle. I work underneath an eldership, and I also work alongside other ministers. So sometimes I know for me, it's interesting when you think back at leadership. I don't know when it changed, but along the course of the last 15, 20 years, we went from management to leadership. And I think in my mindset, in that idea, I guess, I want, in my perspective has changed. And I'm not going to say it as eloquently as Maxwell said it, but I don't want a position that forces people to follow me. I want to be the type of person that influences people in the right way so they want to follow me. And when you become that type of leader, when you lead by influence, I love it. And I've said this before. I think I might have mentioned it to you before. I love it when I meet somebody new and they look at me and they said, "I thought you said you were a preacher." And I love that mentality because we all understand the stereotype type of preacher, especially when it comes to some of our conservative religious organizations. And when I come out and I say I'm a preacher for the Church of Christ, and they look at me and they go, "I must have misheard you because you don't seem like that type of guy." That is probably one of the greatest, maybe compliments I can receive. And I'm not saying that because I'm out doing things unruly or against the law or being an awful person, but I love to be with people and I like to know people and I want to be around people and I want to have fun with people, and I can make as good of a joke as the next guy. And I'm not going to show up at your, well, yeah, I'm not going to show at your door up at your door on a Saturday afternoon with a suit and tie on. I'm going to have shorts and a t-shirt on, and we're going to go throw the football or throw the baseball, or I'm going to help you move out of your house and we're going to get sweaty together and let's go work out at the gym and let's influence people that way. Because I think when I was able to change my mentality of, I don't want a position of a preacher so people will follow. I want to be a minister that positively influences people. And I probably can't do this without bringing up what Paul said about becoming all things to all men. Paul was effective because he was able to be in every situation and be like those people, so those people respected him. And I think so much in our leadership models today, we don't do a good job of that because we want to be a certain type of person or a certain type of leader. And I'll be honest with you, so many leaders today are self-centered and they just want the attention. And I would encourage anybody listening, if you're out there being a leader just to be seen or to have self attention or to make yourself feel better, get out of the leadership position. You're not cut out for it, because our job as leaders are to lead people, and we lead them best by being influential examples in their lives so they see how much we care. We see how much we love them. We empower them to become leaders. We help them to grow, and then we can really start seeing effective leadership take place.
Man, that was once again heavy hitting stuff. I'm going to do the same thing. You three are literally like golden nuggets. This is fantastic. The thing that I really loved is that you had a recurring theme of that, of changing my mindset, changing my outlook. And it was very self-reflective. The selfish leader is obviously out the door. Your care was showing, Dustin. You actually genuinely care about people, which allows you to have influence, and that was pretty big. And then just a hot button topic for me, semantically speaking: management versus leadership. Management is bad, leadership is great. Management, the computer can manage something, right? We're humans, we need to lead people. And so I think that the way you influence people is different. You make those connections with your people. In a polarizing topic, you draw people together by knowing that they care and relating to them, and be respected by all people for your interactions with them. Outstanding points. Okay, so this next question is for everybody, and I'm just probably work back down the line again. So Dustin, I'll fling this one back over to you, but give me a quick little breakdown if you want to do it through example or something like that. But I'm sure nobody in churches ever disagrees with each other. That doesn't happen, right? So anytime there's some type of dissent or disagreement with your teams or your peers and constituents, what type of strategy or strategies do you help implement to keep things harmonious in a positive working environment, that we can move forward and keep that positive culture?
Communication. Communication, guys, is huge, and we all know that. And I think personality in communication is big. I'm not one to allow the knowledge of somebody else being upset or mad or whatever they're going through and just ignore it. I'm going to come knock on the door and say, "Hey, let's sit down and talk." I don't like to allow things to fester. And I know that's not everybody's style and not everybody's able to do that. I think as a leader, we have to be able to do that, especially with whether it's employees, whether it's co-leaders or people we work with, peers, or in my situation, members within the congregation. I'm a people pleaser and sometimes to a fault. But I think because of that, it really eats me up if I believe somebody is upset, whether it's with me or with a leadership style I'm trying to implement. And I think sometimes a lot of that is misunderstood. So if I can tear a barrier down and say, hey, let's just hash it out and let's communicate about this. Let's talk about it face to face. There's so many biblical examples of that very concept of, hey, if a brother sins against you, go to that brother, or if you catch that brother in sin, go to that brother. But unfortunately, our culture has led itself to the idea that we do not do that. Unfortunately, our culture says we're more willing to blast somebody on social media before we actually even go and talk to them to their face, or go to our coworker and say, I can't believe they did that, or did you see them do that? I think communication is a key aspect in leading people. And I know for me personally, communication and styles of communication, I'm continually trying to grow on how to become a better communicator.
I love it. And I appreciate you bringing up the Matthew 18 model that applies everywhere, not just in the church, but you said something that is really important, and it was, I go and knock on their door. And so I just want everyone to rehear that you can go to that person to handle disagreements, to happen dissent. Don't sit back and wait for them to come to you. Don't let things fester. You go and knock on their door. And so that's fantastic. And then just as a little teaser, you mentioned social media and some of its communication styles and impact. That's a future topic that'll be mentioned in the future, is about social media and its impact inside of businesses. So that's kind of one of those stay tuned moments. All right, Lara, same questions, disagreement or dissension amongst the teams, amongst the ranks. Give us a tip, trick. How do you handle that?
There's a lot of wisdom in what Dustin said. So I think communication and empathy as a leader are a really good frame of mind to start with when you're going into those conversations. And so one, start with that mindset, but two, when you approach the conversation, making sure that the other individual or individuals understand there's mutual respect here. They're valued, which is why we want to understand where they're coming from. And also kind of setting that common ground of, okay, let's clarify or confirm, is this our common goal? I mean, even something like picking a software. We'll pick something very simple that's an objective decision and it's not a personality difference. It's, okay, what is our common goal? It needs to have these functions. You have to decide on the common result before how you get there. And so even if it's not software, any other topic, it's by getting that common ground, I think you establish or at least strengthen that mutual respect, clarity, understanding, and then you can continue somewhat logically through the conversation of, okay, where was the gap, or where was the misunderstanding, or again, let me make sure I understand where you're coming from. So I think before even getting to the nitty-gritty logistics, it's just understanding where is each entity or individual at as you approach the conversation.
I love it. So can I attempt to summarize a little bit of what you said?
Please.
I want to make sure I'm paraphrasing this right. So one of the things that is common to helping resolve relationships is it's not, let's say you and I have some type of disagreement. It's not Ryan versus Lara, right? It's Ryan and Lara versus the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're getting is you're telling people to have empathy with each other, come with that mutual respect, find that common goal. But we agree that we want to go from A to C. We want to get that far. We're going the same direction. So now that becomes, it's not us versus each other, a personality or disagreement sometimes, but it's us versus the problem, and we need to figure out how to get to C. Does that feel in line with what you've been saying?
Yes, that's a much better way of putting it.
It's much better. I heard that someplace else, and I'm stealing it from somebody, and I thought it applied here. So that's mostly what I do, is steal other people's stuff. So and try to sound smart. So I like it. Thank you very much. That was awesome. All right, Kevin. same thing, disagreements, dissension among the ranks or whatever it is. How do you go for it?
Yeah, and some very good information already being said. Working in the Marine Corps, I worked in a small unit, integrity, teams of 4, maybe 6. Law enforcement, our roll call shifts, we may have 6 to 8 people working the street. So as an agency, I think it was about 74 officers. That's fairly a good size in Western Kentucky, but you have to deal with it swiftly, in my opinion. You have to go to the source. You can't, it'll just cause bigger problems. One thing that I used to say, and I learned this from my leaders, was say what you mean and mean what you say. Now that's a big statement. What I mean by that is, if I go to an individual team member or fellow employee or some subordinate that I'm supervising who just is having a bad day, has a disagreement with whatever, and we discuss it, and we have that communication that's open, and we try to resolve. There's some things I can resolve as a leader at my level, some things I can't. I may have to take it up to a higher level. But if I say something within that communication with that individual, I better mean what I say. And what I mean by that is, if I don't make promises that I can't deliver, and if there are situations where the decision doesn't lie with me, then I make that clear. I make that known in that conversation. I'll do my best, to take it up the chain. Now, if it's something at my level that is directly under my control or my responsibility, then absolutely we have that line of communication. And those issues that, if it's more of a disciplinary situation, I've always tried to handle it at my level. But you definitely handle it. There's plenty of examples where leaders don't handle it, because not all leaders are the same. We know this. It's very difficult to go sit down with somebody or go communicate with somebody that it's going to be, we really don't know what's going to happen. But that communication has to be said. Don't make promises you can't deliver. That's going to create more problems. But say what you mean what you say is something that I was taught. And it worked dividends. It paid dividends for me in my position as a leader. In the Marine Corps, I had a little bit more liberty to be a little bit more stern, just because the Marine Corps, it has its policies and it has its regulations, and there's a whole chain of command. It's a different environment, but communication is always key. But don't make promises you can't handle. And that's the best way to get to the bottom of the source of the issue, in my opinion.
I love it. I think that goes perfectly in line with what the other two are saying as well. And just highlight something that you said and the other two alluded to as well, is it has to be handled swiftly, right? Anytime there's dissent or disagreements, anything genuine, like, you could raise your hand and say, hey guys, we're eating Applebee's for lunch instead of O'Charlie's. Well, if there's dissent about that, that's probably not a decision you have to go handle immediately, right? But if it's like a policy issue and their jealousy and rivalry issues, things like that need to be handled swiftly. And we talked about festering earlier on in the conversation and going to the source. So swiftly go to the source, handle it yourself, and don't make promises you can't keep. Those are, and it's funny, that whole mean what you say and say what you mean. I don't think I've ever heard you say that before. That's so weird, Kevin. Yeah, man, that might be my 100th time. I love it. I may have used that a time or two in my life as well. So same type of ground there. We've had dissent and disagreements amongst our team, and we try to do the same thing. What I generally do is I do a little bit of a law enforcement model, because I've got some detective training in my brain. I go to one source to get their information, go to the other source to get their information. Generally speaking, the truth is somewhere in the middle between those two, and bring everybody together and we talk about it. But I would just put a capstone on all of that as the leader. Anytime there's disagreements and dissent and there's friction, there's the ability for it to be a slightly volatile situation. And as a leader, you have to be the one that keeps it calm. You have to be the one that brings it down lower. You cannot also get fired up in those situations. And then, you keep doing it. And we have an emergency protocol in our office. We are allowed to panic under two situations, right? Did somebody get shot, and have we violated somebody's civil rights? Okay, it's maybe time to panic a little bit. Everything else, we can handle that with ease, right? And then, of course, I could probably handle the other two for us. But let's keep the circle going here. I want to ask, we've got probably 8 more minutes before I would like to open it up to questions to the audience. So we're going to kind of rapid fire some of these next couple of questions, okay? I want to specifically talk about building trust. And Kevin, I'm going to go with you. You've had to deal with governmental community relations, policing relations, military relations with foreign citizens of different countries and all kinds of stuff. I want real quick, what is something that you do, Kevin Neal, to build trust in the communities that you've served?
Yeah, set the example. Given clear and concise information to other leaders above me who are going to make bigger decisions. So the trust in the information that I relay to them, as far as what I'm seeing, for an example, as a sniper on the battlefield, it has to be clear and concise. It has to be really good intel, and I have to be trustworthy. The commanders have to have trust in me that what I tell them is good information, because then they have to turn around and make bigger decisions that affect more people and have higher dividends or consequences. So for me, it's kind of goes back to say what you mean what you say, but it's the trust in the individual to say, you know what, he said this and I trust him, because somebody else above you is going to be making another decision.
Now that was big. That was that struck a good blow. I really appreciate you doing that. Now, I'm going to pivot over to Lara too. All right, so we're going to switch. Yeah, go ahead.
Same question or different question?
Oh, different question. I got one just for you.
Okay.
So we're going back to kind of that professional services accounting industry. We've got all kinds of technological changes, both in our industry and outside the industry. And you're more than welcome, obviously, to do it inside of the accounting world. But technology, automation, even the creeping in of AI or whatever it is, we need to strike a balance between leveraging all of those technologies and delivering value and relationships to our clients. Right. So I'm speaking from experience. We're trying to get our clients to utilize like portal systems, for example. It's more automated for us and it's more automated for them, but it decreases our sit down talk time with the clients and has the potential to steal from the relationship. So inside your teams and with your clients, what are you doing, or what are you consciously making yourself aware of and your staff aware of to maintain relationships while leveraging technology and automation?
That is a very interesting change in the environment, because the accounting industry or our accountants have turned into relationship managers, which, I mean, you think even 10 years ago, my task or my project list was very task oriented. And now we have things like automation or AI able to perform the highly duplicatable tasks. And so really that's an advantage for us, because we can use the new bandwidth to check in with our clients and ask them how their kids are doing, and spend 5 minutes on the phone talking about their weekend rather than spending 5 minutes on the phone instructing them on how to scan documents. So really, it's not we're spending less face time with them, it's the face time that we spend with them is higher value, either in building the relationship or in even the information that we provide to them and the advisory that we now have the bandwidth to deliver to them. Because more often than not, clients don't care about line 7 on their tax return. If they've hired you as a professional, they trust it's being done correctly. The reason they're really hiring you is to be proactive, be thinking of them when there's new opportunities, and to know and understand their situation and kind of be their backup, the expert that they aren't. And so by utilizing the AI, the even automated emails through our project management system reduces the manual time we have to spend on it. Now we get to call them on their relationship anniversary with us, year 1, year 10, or just congratulate them on their 10 years in business and really enforce the strength of that relationship.
Yeah, that goes back a lot to the care, to imparting that utilize the technology so that we can care at a better, deeper level. But yeah, I love it. Again, once again, golden answer. All right, Dustin, completely different question. I'm pivoting over to you, sir. All right. You get some of the fun ones, right? Because how do you navigate the balance between like traditional religious teachings, right? And then what appears to be rapidly evolving societal standards and societal values, right? So this is not the first time in history, but it's probably the first time in history with an internet where everything can happen at this speed, at this pace. How do you respond to that and handle that kind of stuff, those changes?
I'm not sure. It is a ever changing atmosphere. And I think really it all kind of ties back to that initial response I gave of the influence. And I keep going back to that because there's so many different aspects of influence. Because to me, one of the major aspects of influence is when you really, and kind of Lara hit on it too, when you really show that care to somebody, you develop that trust. And kind of going back to what Kevin said also. So when you can establish care and trust in people, they can hear a lot of things and see a lot of things online and on social media. But if they have a care, or if they have a trust in you, knowing that you care for them, you will become their expert. Um, and what I have seen personally in that is people will hear things. Well, this religious group is doing that, or this group over here is teaching this. And because of my influence and my relationship with them, they know I care about them. They know I genuinely love them. They know that I would do anything for them. They come back to me and say, what does the Bible say about that? What is the truth in that? And because of their trust that I care for them, not always, but those people who I've had a positive influence on will come back to me or to one of our other ministers here at Broadway and seek that truth because of the influence we've had on them. I hope that answers that question. That's
That
kind
actually
of a
answered the
broad.
question very well. And I'm going to pull out the thread that I think was the whole unraveling of the whole thing. It was that you said when you have established trust as a leader, as a person of influence over them, you have become their expert. Right. And so I can see whatever flashes in front of my face on TikTok, social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I can watch whatever version of the news I decide to watch. And I receive that. There's a programming that happens inside of me, whether I like it or not. But I come back with questions and confusion about these changes to my expert, who is a person who I trust, who has led me, who has influenced me, and can point me to the truth. And I think that applies across any of those industries. Hey, Gunny, we got this weird situation going on here. What do I do? You're my expert. How do I respond to this? Hey, Lara, you're the boss. We're driving change here. I've never seen something like this before. What do I do? I'm getting conflicting information. Right. And then you become that expert. I think that was a really powerful statement. I think you answered that very well. All right. So for just a moment here, I have a couple of more questions loaded on our side, but I really want to challenge. We've got a good handful of audience members in here. You guys open up that chat. There's a chat platform. Ask us some leadership-based questions, maybe a specific example or two, a what-if scenario. And I want to give these last 10 minutes to those. So we're going to be looking out, and Janelle, you'll help proctor some of those as they come in if you catch a good one. I'm going to ask one more question while I really challenge people to, again, you can shoot from the hip even if you need to on some of these questions as we round out the top of the hour. But this is one of our big questions here, and it's okay, like Justin, you just said, that we don't necessarily have to know the answers as leaders, but we can know where the answer is located, have another expert surrounding ourselves that we can lean on, and we can all find the answer together. So my question for the panel, and I'm just going to work backwards again, Dustin, Lara, Kevin, how do you prioritize self-care and mental well-being, both for you as you lead and those who you lead? And especially, I want to kind of, especially like during critical or high stress times, how do you prioritize self-care and mental well-being?
I'll be honest, I've not always been good at it. I have the type of personality where if I'm not going 100 miles an hour 24/7, I feel like I'm cheating somebody. And it'll be the death of me, I'm sure, one day. I don't know. I'm sure you've all heard of it, the book Boundaries. I read that book and I'll read it again, and trying to establish those boundaries in my life. I have 300 some people that call me the preacher, but I have a wife and 3 kids at home that need to have a husband and a dad. And I think in my life, I have oftentimes lost focus of that, because we all know the adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And unfortunately, the squeaky wheel is oftentimes those members, or our employees and our family. They do a good job of just sitting back. So I think for me, that boundary of being able to say no, turning off my phone on my off days, or really spending time in the present with my family, with my kids. Another aspect to that personally, for that self-health, obviously those things add to my self-healthiness, but finding that personal time for my own study, instead of studying always for an upcoming lesson. I have a couple people in the congregation that keep me accountable, by sending me text messages or calling me and saying, hey, did you spend time on your personal spiritual growth this morning? I also enjoy exercising, and we all know the benefit of exercising and those endorphins that are released when you're able to exercise. That is huge in the business world. That has become a sacred part of my day when I get to go sweat it out. Literally, I sweat out all my stresses, and I can kind of collect my thoughts to go and tackle the day.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's awesome. I love it. So Lara, what about you?
I will say that this is something I'm always improving on, is creating that space for myself, because I don't have kids, but I have a husband, and we have different schedules, and we're building a house and we have projects, and I have the business where I belong in the business for typical business hours just to help run things. But I'm spending so much time outside of the business also just developing myself and thinking of ideas and what's going to help move the business forward. And I'm the type of person that's very obsessive about these types of things, where I love what I do and I love the process of what I do. And so it's very easy to get carried away. And then eventually you get spent and feel like you need a week off. And so one thing that as a rule I do is no emails, no work, nothing on the weekends. And that gives us the dedicated family time or with friends. And I tell everyone this, that there are no accounting emergencies. So it's fine to just work business hours. Obviously, there's times of the year that are busier than others around tax deadlines and things that you can't control. Obviously, I don't think the IRS will be changing those. And so some things that we have done internally to kind of create that balance is we're not taking like year-end accounting projects from ad hoc, clients, unless it turns into a monthly ongoing engagement. So it's, yes, we'll take you, but you're going to be on a monthly engagement so that the workflow is spread throughout the year. We have internal cutoffs. So a client has to turn in, they have to be tax ready 4 weeks before the deadline for us to even consider them being filed on time. If they're tax ready after our internal cutoff, we'll file it, but it'll be after the deadline. And so we're really reinforcing these boundaries and these expectations with clients so that their procrastination doesn't become our emergency. And then the byproduct of that is balance for the team, balance for ownership, because we're all people pleasers. We want to help people, and it's really hard to say no. And so putting those boundaries in place gives us something to fall back on without feeling bad about it or like we let someone down. And so that's been huge in helping pace that out.
That's awesome. You effectively stated everything I was planning to say. So very good. Very good. I love it. That saves us time because you stole what I was going to say. Excellent. Kevin, same question. Self-care, mental well-being, you and the people you serve. And I want to know specifically under crisis, when shots are being fired, when we're going to that domestic and there's not enough officers available, there's a standoff, there's people going down range, you don't got the squad in place yet. How do you do it, man? You're on mute. See if you figure it out. I see. Kevin, you're on mute, buddy.
From my, yep, I did it again. From my military and law enforcement experience, obviously very high threat awareness in situations, but we were so prepared mentally and physically that I didn't feel, although we do have that effect, it's going to affect everybody differently. But I felt like I was prepared to go into those situations. And I didn't think about the dangers. I didn't think about the threats. I thought about just doing what needs to be done for the situation. So for me, the self-care, I felt like I managed it the best I could. I will say, as a public servant, as an elected official, coming in after 41 years of someone being in that seat, I've never experienced that type of stress. That was I would go back to combat. I would go back to law enforcement. It's a different type of stress because it was a different environment. I didn't see the threats. If you understand that, I didn't see the back rooms where people were, maybe working to move against the initiative that's being put on the table, and just a whole host of different types of stress. So to me, self-care, and it was already hit on, exercise is key. You've got to keep the heart going. You got to get that stress off of you, and exercise. I was able to do that in the military. I was able to do that in law enforcement. But in this particular job as a county leader, if I go to the gym, I can't get a workout done because somebody's got a problem. They come to me. So I found that I wouldn't go to the gym. I wouldn't go to that grocery store. And eventually I wasn't getting out. I wasn't going here. I wouldn't mow the yard at certain times of the day because people would stop me. I changed my habits to fit to avoid those types of contacts. And what happened was I was working myself too hard. I was focusing on getting things done. And my family, just as it was stated earlier, man, family was key. My family suffered for 7 years. It was easy to get caught up on getting something done, and my wife and my kids, eating dinner without me, and I'm getting home late. I learned a valuable lesson during that time frame, and it's different than when I was deployed to Iraq and I was gone for a year. I was in a totally different country. Here, I'm 20 minutes down the road and I'm working till 8, 9 o'clock at night. So managing that, you just have to be able to turn it off. And it takes that willpower to where you see something that you want to get done. That was my character. I wanted to get that done, to say, nope, can't do that right now. I got my priorities now waiting on me at the house. So exercise, eating healthy, are just two of the biggest things that I think would help with that self-care, and being able to say, no, I got to turn this off.
Yeah, I love it. That's perfect. And that's a pretty great way to round out the hour. I'll just do a couple of quick comments on my side, and I'll turn it over to Janelle to officially conclude us and let everybody run off, because I know we're right up against the window and I want to be respectful of time. But mentorship is a huge portion for leadership. Mentoring yourself, kind of like Dustin did earlier. I got to keep reading. I got to keep studying for myself. mentoring your people, like Lara mentioned earlier about, hey, here's a process, here's a plan. Mentoring, like Kevin mentioned, here's the resources and how you use them in the right scenario and make sure you have them. And then you mentor your clients. This is the best way to interact with us. You mentor your third-party relationships. You mentor those things. And so that's going to be one of our future discussions as well. But I want to leave everybody with that thought that's watching here today, or maybe watching the recording later on, is like, what are you doing to mentor yourself? And that's part of those 5 M's: the mindset, the materials, the methodology, the mentorship, and the measured growth. And so what are you doing to mentor yourself, to mentor others, to keep that self-care going, that fitness, that exercise, that spiritual health, those priorities that are true priorities, the expectations you set with people, the boundaries that you keep in place and hold those boundaries. They're not movable boundaries. And so I want that to sink in. Everybody answer that question in your own mind, watching at home, and be ready for the next one of these. We're gonna do more webinars, probably monthly, and these 3 right here are going to be seen again. You're going to see each one of them again. They're fantastic people that have just depths and wealth of knowledge and wisdom. And I just want to thank you, everybody, for logging in, and a special thank you to you guys for coming on board and sharing your experiences with us, your frustrations, your tips, your tricks. And Janelle, if you don't mind closing us out.
Yeah, great. Oh my gosh, thank you guys. I learned so much and I could listen to you all for hours. I want to just let you guys know before you log off, I have a special surprise that you should be able to see on your screen. Ryan is working on an ebook called The 5 Positions of Leadership. It is coming soon. And if you hold up your phone and scan that little barcode that you see under Scan Me, you can put your name and email address in there, and we will send you a copy of this book when it is complete. So just a little bonus and a little thank you for hopping on today. Stay tuned because we will be doing more of these. And thank you all for your wisdom. This was really, really insightful and amazing. And even though all of you guys come from such different areas of leadership, I think a lot of what you all said applies everywhere. So thank you so much for all of your time. And I think that's it, Ryan.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ryan.
Y'all have a good day.
You too, Kevin. You guys all have a good afternoon and a good weekend.
Absolutely.